Hey, what's up? You're welcome to the Hangout Live with Drake and Robbie Lochner. Robbie,
Yes,
man, dude, did you see that little flash of you and I between those little
I
videos?
did.
What the was up with that?
I don't know.
Right, we gotta fix some things here. But welcome to the Hangout Live. We've had a long week, man, and most of the country had a long week, especially if you're in the South with all of these storms that took place and the power outages and everything that you guys have faced and experienced. Obviously, we went through it here in Texas. We got our asses handed to us. So hope you're all well, safe, and warm, and getting things back and rolling, and looking forward to having another great show tonight. So welcome.
Yes.
All right, so everybody's starting to
Yeah.
tune in now. I will make a quick mention here that the asshats that do comprise of Facebook have choked down algorithms to almost non-existent. So if you've made your way here, we appreciate you. Obviously, they want people to start spending money because they're losing people by the droves. And we are going to Twitch here. Here in the next week or two, we are now doing our technical setups, and we will be moving over to the Twitch Rams network and
Yep.
making that a reality. And we will use this briefly to get that portion going, and then we will move over
Transition.
full time. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. So,
Yep.
brother, we've got
Yeah.
one of the most kick-ass drummers ever, who has played with basically everyone ever known to music, one way or the other, is recorded with, performed with, or toured with. I'm talking about Jimmy Paxson. Let's bring him on in here.
Let's bring
Jimmy,
it in. Let's do it.
What's up?
what's going on, my brother?
Good to see you.
It's good to see
All
you, my
right.
friend. I appreciate you joining us. So
Man, thank
before
you.
the show, we were talking about what area of the country are you in. Now, did you get hit with the weather storms like we did?
Oh yeah, we had like I don't know, record snowfall. We had we had no hot or cold water in the kitchen, and we had no hot water in the bathroom. But the power stayed on, and there was a ton of snow. And then today it was like -7 the second day of the snow, and today it was 70 out. So
Wow.
go figure.
So we're about on the same page. So we got our water shut down like 2 weeks prior to the storm because they found 9 potentially fatal chemicals inside of our water supply.
Oh man, where are you?
I'm in San Angelo, Texas, in the West Corridor of Texas.
Wow, man.
Yeah, right by the hook. They're going to New Mexico. And so right when the storm hit, we just got our water back, and then they're like, "Oh, we have all the water line breaks, and we're gonna have to shut you down again."
Well, man, I'll tell you, it's funny. Like, it's been one thing after another. In November, my Beyonce and myself, we went out to Dallas, like to go to this, just to get away, to get out of town. And while we were away, there was like an ice storm. So we
Right.
came back to 14 days of no power. And then in the middle of that, I found out I had COVID, which
Oh,
sucked.
wow.
Yeah, I got through that. I actually got it at my studio, like doing a favor for a friend who had not been out of the house or done much in months, but he saw his family like a few days prior, and he called me the next day. And man, both of us had it, and we were in here less than like 2 hours. Here, I'll give you a shot. Here. Look, I'm in my studio now, like
Nice. Check
so,
that out.
and I got another room across the hall. So I mean, it just seemed to me like the COVID thing hit, and we were taking a break. Then we go away. Then there's an ice storm. Come back, get COVID. Dog died.
Oh,
Man,
You name it. And then everything was just flowing. And then all of a sudden, it was like, boom! Here comes a snowstorm. Like you're not gonna believe. And now today it's 70 degrees out. So I mean, I know it's kind of a long way of telling it, but I mean, I don't know what's next, a meteor or something, what's going to happen.
So how bad was the COVID,
Wow.
man? Real talk. I mean,
The
it takes
COVID was, well, I think like every day I downplayed it, like, oh, I'm cool. This is no big deal. But then like 2 days later, I'd realize what a big deal it was that I was dealing with. And then, I had like a super high fever for about a day or so. And then just the feeling horrible, real spaced out, and then there's that like thing where you're wondering like if in the middle of the night when you go to sleep if you're going to wake up and not be able to breathe. But 2 weeks later, everything was cool and it was gone, and it kind of gives you a little bit of confidence knowing you had it and the antibodies and all that.
Yep.
But it's no joke, man. I've known people that have gone through living hell in the hospital with it, and I've known people. Unfortunately, I've known a few people that have died. And it's an unpredictable thing, but
Yep.
it seems to be settling down somewhat. Which I don't know what happened, but it's whatever happens. If it's gone, I'll be happy.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely not dominating the news as it was earlier.
No, and it's partially open out here. I mean, I think people here are a little more eager to get back to it. It's a smaller town, so if you do go do a gig, like you basically will see the same crowd. I mean, it'll be a crowd of people, but it'll be the same people you saw like the week before. That doesn't seem like there's a lot of like strangers wandering, and I don't know if that aids in it not getting spread so much, but you still got to be careful, still got to wear that mask when you walk in and that kind of thing. But yeah, we got hit by the weather and everything else, man. It's no joke. But now it's, like I said, 70 degrees out, man. I don't know, man. Who knows what tomorrow's going to be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I'm glad you made it through okay, brother. And
thanks, man.
You got all your senses back, your taste, your smell, everything's good?
Yeah. I'm getting more active too. Like, I mean, it sounds crazy, but today's like the first day I got out and like took a pretty long walk. The COVID-19 pounds are hanging on. I got to get rid of those, man. And
yeah.
I'm recording a lot over here, and I'm trying to put myself through the paces like as if I were going out on the road, because once that comes back, you got to have your stamina up and all that. And I mean, everything, as everything came to a screeching halt, man. It was just like years and years and years of a daily grind, and then all of a sudden, like, hey, guess what?
Right.
Yeah. Robbie knows all about that, don't you, brother?
Yeah, I've been at home like everybody else for the last. It's been over a year since we did our last gig. Just over a year.
Wild.
Yeah.
We were about to go out with the Dixie Chicks, and we had played on the Ellen show.
Mm-hmm.
And we had I think the lobby call was at 7:40 to go to New York and play on the Colbert show. And like at 6:40, the band leader called me and said, "We're not going," because they haven't announced it yet, but they're shutting down New York City.
Wow.
So I stayed around for a couple of days, and like tightened up my stuff in LA and then headed back here. But I figured it would last a month, man, like all of us, oh man, well, we'll be back. Well, maybe it'll be 3 months, and pretty soon it'll be a year. But there are some, there are some things in the air, nothing solid, but there are people, I'm hearing about people going out and somehow figuring out a way to tour,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So, not to talk behind the curtains, but what was your experience with Ellen, man? Because she got some heat this year.
She's always cool. I played that show a bunch, and, she doesn't really, I wouldn't say she interacts much with me behind the drums, but she always seems friendly and thank you, that kind of thing.
That's cool.
But yeah, cool. I did hear about that.
Yeah, she caught some hell, man. All right. So let's go back, brother, because let's go pre-1987. You took the trip out to LA in 87, but before that, you were over in Jersey.
Yes.
Your parents just happened to be very accomplished Philadelphia jazz musicians.
Yeah.
So obviously you had the influence growing up. There's a lot of music going on at home. Yeah. Now, did they want you to go into music, or did they try to steer you away from it?
They wanted me to play. My father bought a little set of drums for me before I was born, and he was this great jazz drummer, a great everything drummer, really. And he never really sat me down and like gave me a lesson, but he would more or less teach me how to be like how to hang out and not get on the nerves of others and just observe and take it in. I mean, I kind of felt like I was forced to take on the persona of someone older than my age as a little kid, and I mean, he used to get me past the doors at the clubs when he played, like, places a kid shouldn't have been in. And they were always like, well, your son's all right, but he never sat me down and gave me a lesson, nor did my mom. My mom used to like to play piano when I was a kid. And my earliest memory was not even with the drums. It was her telling me she was going to play some stuff on the piano. And she didn't use these words, but what she was doing was trying to create something that would convey an emotion. And she would have me kind of act out what I thought she was doing, you know. And I was a funny kid, so I might use props or something, you know, but it's hard to explain, but imagine someone playing the piano and they play something sad and then you look sad and they play something happy.
Yeah.
But she was trying to get that out of me without saying, be happy, be sad, you know?
Right.
She's still playing. My father passed away, but my mom is still playing in LA and, you know, teaching. She's an amazing musician and a great human being. So yeah, they wanted this. My dad got me to leave Jersey, man. That's a funny story if you want to hear that. But
yeah,
let's hear it. What you got?
All right. Well, there was this bar in Wildwood, New Jersey, which is like way south. And the southern part of Wildwood's this place called Diamond Beach. And I was playing in there with this band. It was this Philly band. It was two identical twin sisters and their brother. And then they hired me, and they hired like a keyboard player and a bass player. And I was only 16. And that bar, I don't know, you know, they didn't ask questions if you were in the band. They were just like, yeah, come on in. So their next gig was at a casino, and they ended up getting fired from the beach bar. And, you know, they let me go too because they were nervous about bringing someone my age into a casino gig. So the bar owner says to me, hey, kid, I heard they fired you. And I go, yeah, they let me go because of this casino gig. He goes, well, you see that guy over there? And it was the guy that was taking our place. It was this like legendary Jersey dude named Billy Jack. Right. And he goes, he wants to talk to you. So I go over to him. I'm 16. And he goes, oh, man, hey, I heard they fired you. I said, yeah, well, they don't want to bring me to the casino, you know. And he goes, biggest mistake they ever made. He goes, you can work with me. So it was 1986, and he offered me $1,000 a week. It was crazy. Like, you know, there was a couple gigs a day sometimes. And I shook on it and walked over and told my dad. My dad was there helping me get my gear out that last show. And my dad goes, go back and tell him you're very sorry, but you can't take his gig because your old man's going to buy you a ticket out to L.A. So I said, okay. And I went and told the guy, long story, even longer. I go back and my dad goes, Jim, if I don't get you out of here now and you start making that kind of money at your age, like you may never leave. So I leave, I go to LA, you know, there's a whole story there, but cut to the end of it. Like 30 years later, I'm wondering about the guy and I find him on Facebook and I write him and I'm like, I don't know if you remember this day in 1986. And he goes, oh, yeah, I remember it really well, and I've been keeping an eye on you. He goes, I always wondered, and when I found you, I kept an eye on you. He goes, and I just want to tell you, if you're still into it, the offer still stands. I mean, that's a long-ass story, but
same pay.
That's I was really grateful that I reached out to the guy, that his comeback was that. Even if I never get to play with him or see him, I mean, the fact that to have that kind of wit and just say, hey, man, and by the way, the offer still stands.
Right, that's killer, man. Now, how was his career? Did he do well?
Man, I see these videos of him, and I never saw him with a band. I always heard he had a great trio, but I see him in these barroom videos where he's wearing a headset with an acoustic guitar, and he's literally like walking on the bar playing LaGrange. You know, he's playing ZZ Top and stuff like that. It's right. I don't think he's changed his set list in 35 years now. You know? But that's cool. Right. Most people haven't, and if it works, why fuck with it?
Hell yeah. So we got a couple questions coming in that people want to know about. So what was your big break when you hit LA in 1987?
Okay. Nothing really happened for a while.
Okay.
I was like 10 years I moved out there with a band, and then the band broke up before we ever rehearsed. And then I joined some bands, you know, first big break. I mean, it's all according to how you look at it, you know, like coming up, if you had a chance to play an opening slot at the Palace, you thought that was a stepping stone and the right break. You know, if I played in that band Shark Island for a while.
Shark Island, yeah.
I was in the last year of that band, and like to me that was like another step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, but the first tour I ever got was, and then I was in a band that had like some TV show hits like in Japan, but we never realized because we were here and the songs were doing well over there.
What band is that?
That band was like there's a Japanese producer named Daisuke Hanada, and he had this like pop band called Cagnet. And I was just like the session drummer on it, but he started doing these photo sessions where we were all in the photo. And then I found out that, because my ex-wife is from Japan, and she was finding out that these songs we had done were on like the biggest, the biggest like soap opera in Japan, a drama. Wow. So we ended up going over there and doing like a little tour on that. So that was like the first break. But then I got the gig with Robben Ford in 1997. And that was real weird because I didn't know who he was. My buddy Chris Chaney and my buddy Gary Novak like recommended me. Gary had to split to go play with Bob Berg. I came in. It was only like a month's worth of gigs. I knew what I was going to do. I met this guy on the gig named Myron Dove, who introduced me to Ronnie Montrose. And then I ended up doing a lot of road work with Ronnie, because Ronnie was doing like these instrumental tours, and we play all this open fire stuff. Okay. And yeah, I guess from there, I ended up coming home from that and somehow getting the gig. It was short-lived, but I went in like when some stuff was going down and toured with Alanis Morissette overseas for a bunch of gigs. Nice. They came home, rejoined my own band at the time, and then like that was in like 99 or something. Then there wasn't shit happening until like 2005. So I mean, I'm just saying the first one, God knows where that was.
Right.
But they all kind of like, fade into each other in a way.
So 87, when you were out in LA and made the move out there, obviously the Sunset Strip is still popping pretty hard.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your experience back then, and were you going to the clubs? Were you hitting the Troubadour and the whiskey? And
I had a band of guys from Atlantic City that were really good, and we came out here, and I remember I took our tape to the Troubadour with the guitar players. This guy, Robben Russo, was one of the two guitar players. He and this guy, Pete Mano, were like the two most shredding, like, of the era metal guitar players I'd ever seen in Jersey. And they grew up on the same block, got their first guitars the same day. I mean, it was like they thought each other's thoughts. But I remember going into the Troubadour and giving Bobby Dean our tape and listening to it with him. And he goes like, man, you guys are great. Like, we'll make this happen. But the band never even got to rehearsal one. I mean, you name it. It made Spinal Tap look like, we were just young. And bass player felt an earthquake the first week he was there and like up and left. And then the guitar players got weird. And then I got into looking for a gig from there. But yeah, I used to hang out at all those clubs, man. I was in a band back then that were some weird dudes. So I don't even want to talk about them. But, they were the ones that introduced me to Shark Island. And not to talk shit, but I remember telling the guys in Shark Island, like, I want to take your gig, but I really don't want to be too closely connected to those guys. Like, I was happy to be out of that band. And I remember Spencer said to me, he goes, oh man, he goes, we were hoping the same thing. Like, we just want you. We're not trying to like merge the two bands or anything. And it was like, no offense to them. It was just like, I was trying to move on in my life. And they were probably my first feeling of like a real band, and those guys were amazing, dude. Those guys, like, I think they really got pigeonholed into something that they were. Who's that? Jennifer Werner. Yeah, I was in a band with two weird dudes. They were brothers.
Two weird dudes.
They should have called it Two Weird Dudes and a Drummer, because that's all it was. I mean, I heard they live in Vegas now and they're doing something. I don't know what. And
they're not Siegfried and Roy, right?
No. Those guys have. I think they still have some bookings. I don't know.
Yeah.
What year was Shark Island again? What year was that?
It was like I want to say Oh, my son was born in 95 and it was before that. So it had to be like 92 or 93.
Okay.
Best part about it, like with those guys, was I met them and we played and they liked it. They were trying to figure out where to rehearse. I'll never forget. And I was renting this house in Hollywood Hills that had like this like storage room in the bottom. And I said, man, we could rehearse in here, but it's going to need a lot of work. And there wasn't even a lock on the door. And I had a day job at the time and I split and I came back and there was a set of keys in my mailbox. They had put a lock on the door down there. They had completely dried out the room, carpeted it, patted it, put in a PA in their gear, and they're like, when can we start? I mean, they just did all that. They were just really nice guys, man. And they split everything even. Like, we all made really good money, you know, for those days. Shit, if you walk away from playing the marquee and you made like $500 a guy, you thought like, man, this is awesome.
Right.
This was a long time ago, you know?
It was a great band. That front man was, everybody looked at that guy like, wow, you know, he was incredible.
Richard was, and we really we became like pretty good friends too, man, like really good friends. He was interesting, man. He used to speak Croatian, you know, and he would take the mic upstairs, and before we'd go on, there'd be like this house, like, you know, that we're going to walk on stage kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he would be saying all this shit in Croatian in the mic. It just sounded like sounds, like, you know, and nobody could see him yet. And he would tell me what he was about to say, like, this means your mother's got a fat ass. You know, he had a great sense of humor about everything. And I don't know, man, I have a tendency to, like, you know, I'm kind of a chameleon with that stuff. And like, I felt like those guys, man, it was like a real natural thing. You didn't really have to adjust that much. They were just cool dudes. I saw Chris, the bass player, on a Dixie Chicks gig somewhere in England, or I forget where we were. He's living in Europe somewhere, and they came to the show, you know.
Really?
Wow, that's cool,
man.
Yeah, they're great. They asked me to do some kind of cruise ship gig not too long ago. Like, we're going to go out and play on a cruise, like a rock cruise.
Cool.
But, you know, and nobody's going to go on a cruise now.
Right. I was wondering if they've done any cruises. I haven't heard anything about them in years. I figured maybe they'd at least do some festivals or some cruises or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they wanted to. I'm sure they maybe will. I mean, I don't know if Richard's still in. He lived in Sierra Madre. You know, he's doing. Last I heard, he was doing like this great artwork out of like welded metal. That was his thing.
That's cool.
But yeah, I don't see those guys too much. But it was nice to see Chris. I don't know. I think everybody but Richard now lives in another country.
Wow.
That's wicked cool. So you're cruising around LA, 87, 88, 89. So basically 97, 10 years you're out there grinding.
Yeah. And it was, you know, I guess if I had first gone out there and just tried to play drums and not try to be in a band or form a band, you know, the band thing, you work and you work and you work, and then, you know, you're trying to get this record deal, and, you know, you finally get you go through a million bands that you can't get it to work. Then you get one to get it to work, and for one reason or another, it gets blown up like at the end.
Right.
You know,
looks like Brenda wants to know what your day job was when you left.
Oh, well, I sold every imaginable thing over the phone. If you ever got a telemarketing call from a guy named Ken Brown, it was probably me. There was a dude I moved out to LA with originally. This guy Skip, it's Scott Smith, this great Atlantic City, like Jersey drummer. And we were all living in this apartment on Yucca, like everyone else was. And it was like, well, what are we gonna do for work? And I went working for this like carpet cleaner guy, which was a nightmare job. He's a nice guy, but I mean, you know, it's a lot of schlepping up steps and stuff. And Skip goes and like applies at this recording studio that turned out it wasn't a studio anymore. It was a telemarketing room in an old studio. And he's like, you know, back then it was like, oh man, it's 8 a.m. and I already made, you know, $50. Like, I was like, man, well, sign me up. I've been cleaning rugs all day and I made 30, you know what I mean? And you would go in there. There was a guy named Mike that worked there that I still stay in touch with. He looked just like Steven Tyler. And, you know, he was like the total rocker. He like called himself Mikey Mascara. And we're still bros, man. But now he goes by his real name, Mike Jenna. But we used to sell that shit on the phone, man. We anchors, nuts, bolts. I was Ken Brown from Tricord Industries. Anchors, nuts, bolts, and screws. You know, I still remember the sales pitch because I'm insane. But
all right, we got to hear it then, dude. We got to hear this.
well, that one you would call him up and you'd be like, you know, hey, is Bob there? Hey, Bob, this is Ken Brown from Tricord Industries. You know, the fastener outfit, anchors, nuts, bolts, and screws. How you doing today? Fine, yeah. Well, Bob, you know, from time to time, we like to touch base on the anchor lines. And when we do, I always let you know if I have something good price-wise. I have that situation today. Grab a pen. I'll be brief. You can be the boss, right? And then you'd ask them, are you using those blue plastic anchors? And they go, yeah, of course. You buying them in kits or in bulk? And they go in kits. You go, okay, that's the best way. You give them, long story, you give them this price, and they're blown away by the price. But then they ask you, you say, by the case. They go, how many are in a case? And you'd go, 64 kits. And what? And they go, well, they're not going to go bad on you, you know, and you tell them, like, listen, let me cut up this case. Let me see if I can do it. And you'd act like you were putting them on hold.
Right.
And then you'd talk shit about them.
Right.
And let them overhear it, not knowing that you knew they could hear it. And you'd be telling your boss, like, hey, you know, Casey, I got that guy Bob from Bob's Electric. He wants a half a case. No, I'm not doing it. That pain in the ass. Come on, can you just let me do it one time, you know? Okay.
Make him feel bad for you. You went to bat, man.
I mean, it was a job, you know, and then that continued and continued and continued. I always had these jobs like that, man. And then around 97, a buddy of mine, this piano player, great musician, he said, man, sooner or later, you're going to have to quit that day job and like suffer with the rest of us. And I did, man. I walked on the job in the worst way, too. I mean, they wouldn't let me quit this company. So I just one lunch break, just never came back. And the irony was I ended up getting that Robben Ford gig like less than a week later. So I don't know if it had anything to do with it, but it definitely felt like it did at the moment.
The universe opened up for you. You showed commitment. It was like, okay, it's time.
But it was, you know, and it's crazy, man. Like, you know, LA for 10 years trying to get it going was something. But then, you know, around 2005, like everything really came into focus, you know?
Right.
So much good stuff happened from that point.
So 2005. So obviously, let's go through the list a little bit here, my brother. So
yeah, I could put them all in the context because some of them were just sessions, some of them were,
all right.
You know.
So let's go back and let's go down a little bit. Stevie Nicks.
Yeah, I got the gig with Stevie in 2005, and it was an interesting way that happened. But that was 2005, and I was on call for her until 2017.
Nice. I read a comment where she said your what was it, Robbie? Your sticks just
glide off the drum heads. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Always the best, never let me down kind of
thing. That's
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, well, she was cool, man. You know, I can tell you some really heavy shit about like what I did to prepare for that gig.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I know I don't want to talk us down out of one long story, but
no, hell no. Let's go for it.
You know, I try to get comfortable, not complacent, but comfortable, you know, like how can I recreate this, like, you know, environment? Like, what are the things that trip you out? I mean, obviously Stevie Nicks is a very imposing. Yeah. I dig powerful women and like
absolutely
rock and roll, man. She's as powerful as it gets. And, you know, she ends up picking you to do her gig. But I remembered it when she walked in the room, right? The scent of gardenia, the flower, was like so intense. And I noticed that, like, you know, the energy would change when she walked in and you caught that scent, not because of the scent, but you knew she was there. And, you know, maybe you're concerned about scrutiny or whatever. Or, am I doing a good job? All that. And Waddy Wachtel, the band leader, Waddy was like the biggest education in everything I've ever had in my life. I mean, there's nobody like him, but But I remember going out, like we had a day off, and I went out to this store, man, and I found some candles that smelled like the gardenia that Stevie wore.
Okay.
And I mean, I found big ones, you know?
Right.
And I just bought like a grip of them, and I put them in my studio because I would shed her music like every night, like just trying to get the feels to be the exact. And I would she don't even know this, but I mean, I would take the lids off the candles. You didn't have to light them, you know, but I would just make the whole room at my rehearsal spot smell like gardenia. So I was like, now when she walks in the room, I'm not going to freak out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm going to stay calm. Like, this is going to get used to it. Eventually I didn't do that anymore. Maybe it sounds psycho, but believe it or not, like to walk in and play with those guys, I mean, that's a very heavy band. I mean, if you think about who's in that group.
Oh yeah, brother.
You know,
Yeah.
So that was 2005. I got with her, and a lot of the other people I would tour with or do gigs with. Stevie took a lot of breaks because of Fleetwood Mac, and you know, people were interested. Oh, we need a drummer. Well, that guy that plays with Stevie Nicks, he's around. Like, oh yeah, we'll call him and see if he can do it.
Right.
And you know, I mean, later on down the line, when that all came to a close, it was really over like some scheduling conflict with only a few rehearsals, and I could have made the whole first tour. But, you know, things happen. Like, I went on to play with the Dixie Chicks, and then we did a great thing with Beyonce, and like that wouldn't have happened had I still continued with Stevie. I wouldn't have been able to make that night at the CMAs, the thing we did with Beyonce. I wouldn't have been able to do all these tours with Philip Sace. I mean, there was a lot of Ben Harper, like all this great stuff. So, you know, sometimes change is okay, you know?
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah. So how did the Beyonce thing come up?
Well, we were playing this song on the Dixie Chicks show called Daddy Lessons, which is a Beyonce tune.
Right.
And Natalie like sent it around, and I heard the drum sounds on it, and it, you know, it's like obviously it sounds like it's a MPC, like a drum machine. Right. So I used like an old 50s suitcase, a garbage can, and this old colonial snare drum, and it sounded just like the samples on the record.
Wow.
And we went out and did it in our acoustic part of the show, and ironically, Beyonce caught wind that this was happening. She saw it and dug it. And when I don't know I can't say that this is exactly how it went down, but I had heard stuff like Beyonce submitted a song to the CMAs, the same song. They didn't take it as a country submission, even though it is really a country tune. And they apologized to her and offered her to play. And she said, I'll do it if the Dixie Chicks can come with me. And then her people said, can you bring your guy that plays the mandolin, your guy that plays acoustic guitar, and the drummer, and tell the drummer to bring that weird drum set. And we rehearsed, man. We were the only thing that was 100% live on the CMAs that year. I mean, like, you know, there was no playback. There was nothing. I mean, I had a click so that I could keep, you know, the performance the same length as the run through. And man, it was funny because we went to rehearse at Sony, and nobody knew what time of day everything was going to. I mean, you know, they said Dixie Chicks people come at 4:30, but I was teching for myself because really I didn't need to have like Mindy, the tour manager. She was like, it's just a garbage can and that. Can you just bring that yourself? So I said, yeah. And I walk in with this garbage can and a suitcase, and I'm just sitting around, and they said, well, so Beyonce's band started rehearsing first.
Right.
And this guy, Derek, ironically, his last name is Dixie, was the band leader. And he said, hey, and somebody said, like, what are we going to do for the drum beat? And he goes, well, you see that trash can and that suitcase? Well, when that guy over there sits and plays it, it sounds just like our record. And he goes, Jimmy, you know, you don't have to wait for your other guys to get here. You can start rehearsing with us now if you're into it. And I said, yeah. And the song starts with the beat. And man, it was like the most gratifying 4 bars of my life. I started the beat, and everybody in the room, woo, standing up, started dancing and shit. And I was like, man, this is, you know. and her drummer was there, this girl Joy, and she was playing like these MPC samples, and this guy from this great weird underground trio from New York called Too Many Zoos. I don't know if you've seen them, but they were there, and he was playing like a bass drum and a tambourine on top of it. It just, I mean, there must have been 20 of us on the stage. They had a guy with a washboard. I mean, if you get a chance to check that out, and then the last run through of the rehearsal actually got released and is a single that's on, Beyonce sells that record. And dude, we played that song. I could get the drums down, play the beat, but we played that song so many times to rehearse it for like a week straight, one song, 9 hours a day. Wow. And I don't have the snare here, but it's a big old colonial drum with these big wood hoops.
Right.
And, and you're playing side stick on it for 9 hours a day. And my technique is good. I don't, but 9 hours of that, the forearm physically is not used to.
Right.
Yeah. Even loose, man. And I just remember feeling like I felt like I got my ass kicked from playing, 2 and 4 for 9 hours a day for a week straight as a side stick. It's you don't expect that discipline and man, it's a part. You got to play it. What are you gonna do? And they go, and I told them, I was like, man, you guys rehearse like this hard all the time, and they're like, harder.
Now that throwing it out there, brother, I don't think anybody would mind if you spun that camera a little bit and played us a beat to it.
Well, I'm looking. I just got back from this thing but let me see if I can do this. The drums are. It's that beat was just. I don't have I could go over there, but I got this drum here I picked up in Africa. I got this thing in Africa, actually. South Africa. Nice. But the beat, pardon the mess. The beat was just but I got the trash can here actually, so that's all you played, can't really see that, but it's
right.
Boom, boom, boom. That's and at 9 hours of that, man, you can't really fuck up the song if you rehearse it 9 hours a day for a week straight, because at that point you could probably hold a conversation, bake a cake, all of it while you're doing it, because you've gotten it into your bones,
Hell yeah, but, literally after 9 hours a day.
Yeah, I mean that was such. And then I left that gig. I left there that night and went straight to Canada to link up with Philip Sace and do a van tour, which we always had a good time, man. That was the sweatiest gig on earth. Yeah, I got this gig with this guy Eikichi Yazawa in Japan, which is he's their Elvis, their Mick Jagger, their Bowie, everything over there.
Right.
And it is similar to playing, imagine if you were in Toto one song, and then you were in Judas Priest the next song, and then you were in later Judas Priest, when it became that drummer that was in Racer X, what's his name, Scott
Travis, yeah.
It becomes that, and then it's a Beatles sounding tune, and then it's a bossa nova and some weird shit, and an orchestra comes out. But I remember feeling very winded the first time I toured with that guy, but after I started playing with Philip, I went over there bring it on, man, because Philip, you basically, if you don't, Philip's gonna play spit such fire, you're gonna need oxygen. It's so hardcore,
right?
It's great. It's great. Philip's a great guitar player, and Yazawa's gig always had great guitar players too. Toshi Yanagi was the guitar player on there. He turned me on to the gig, and then Jeff Coleman joined up, and he's part of it now. They asked me for somebody at one point. I told them that they were interested in Doug Rappaport. I gave them a thumbs up, because we played with Edgar Winter together. So Mitch Perry did that gig for a while before me. It's everybody, once in a while I run into somebody and they'll go I just did a gig recently with this guy that sings with Grand Funk. He's been in the band forever, and he was in 38 Special, and he was telling me he played with Yazawa, but
really,
Yeah, that's the thing about this whole like COVID thing is like things just like stopped. I was subbing before this hit. I got lucky and did some gigs subbing with Waddy Wachtel. I got a band together with all the guys that were the section, but and they call it the Immediate Family. And like Russ Kunkel couldn't make the gigs, like a few of the like I don't know 2 weeks of gigs or whatever. So I went out and did that. But oh yeah, all these things connect, man. That's the thing. It's like there were a million gigs, but they all feel like one gig, you know?
Yeah. Who was singing for that Waddy thing?
Bernard Fowler. Oh, the road thing.
Yeah.
Was in town when I play with Waddy. When I'll sub for Phil Jones, so like when Phil can't make it, I'll do it. But that band is like Bernard Fowler and Jamie Savko.
Yeah, I know Jamie really well.
Jamie's great. And then the one night, Stevie's bass player, we were hanging out and we were talking about how great, Jamie sang, and Waddy goes, well, he's a tenor. And, we were kind of drunk. The gig was over or whatever. And Al goes, no, man, he's an 11er. But the Waddy tour band, that other band, the Immediate Family, it's Danny Korchmore, Lee Sklar, Waddy. And, man, I can know people for 30 years and talk about them every day. And I can't remember my buddy's name. Fuck.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a great one. But they go out and they play all these like tunes they wrote for people, Steve Postel. God, why was I spacing on Steve Postel? He's the other guy in the band. But yeah, I mean, and, not to keep talking here. Sorry. But, the way things went, like after the Dixie Chicks tour, I couldn't do some Stevie stuff, and I was kind of bummed out about it. And then Brett Tuggle called me and asked me if I knew a drummer that could go out and play with Lindsey Buckingham and Christine McVie. And I started recommending some guys, and then all of a sudden I went, when is it? And he told me, I'm like, well, I can make that,
Right.
So I had to audition for that. And I ended up getting that. So, that kind of, and throughout all this stuff, like Lindsey booked another solo tour. And then I do a lot of playing with Ben Harper, with Ben on his own, and also with Charlie Musselwhite. Like Ben has his other band, The Innocent Criminals. I'm not a part of that, but I remember we were like, I was wondering if I was going to be able to make a Lindsey tour, but like all this stuff just worked out. Like the Ben tour was ending and the Lindsey tour was like, a few days later. Well, okay, cool. And that's what I miss the most these days is like those doors opening. But, I'm out here in Oklahoma, and I'm still, technically a resident of California. I still have California tags on my car and all that, but I get to play with people out here that I never would have met had all this not happened. And like, I've been doing some local gigs with this singer named Adam Aguilar, who's like, amazing. And this guy, Mike Satterway, great guitar player. There's other guys, there's just so many players here, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta trust, I'm not like a religious person, but I am a spiritual person, and I gotta just let God be God. Cause you never know, like, what are you doing here? Well, obviously I came here because I fell in love and, got engaged. But at the same time, like musically, I can't really complain about what's happening here at all. It's really strong, and it's really good with good people,
That's incredible, brother. You sound like you've got a blessed life in a lot of fronts. You've got two amazing children.
They're badass. I mean, my son just last year, he's a pro volleyball player, and then he was doing really well. And then he discovered that he had like a 3-centimeter tumor behind his left knee. Oh, no. So thank God it was cancer, but thank God they were able to like remove it completely. But that's weird. He has like a degree to teach sports. So he's probably going to get into that. And then my daughter's like this badass anime person. Like she comes up with characters and she's doing that. She don't really like to leave the house which in the COVID, was the funniest thing. I was like, Maya, make sure you don't, go out. She goes, Dad, you forget, like, I love being home.
And she takes a little bit after Dad too. She's a drummer too, isn't she?
Yeah, she plays really well. I mean, she's I just did a recording recently out here for an anime movie, and it was like the super, I don't know what you call it, but it's almost like metal kind of fast beats,
Right.
And I told her, that she would have been better on the session than I was, But I mean, she was my inspiration that day. You know what I mean? I went in and
man, that's cool.
at 9 o'clock in the morning playing, fast beats. And in July, by the way, in July, I drove back to LA, and it's too expensive, man, like to keep my studio going there and all that on top of everything else that I keep going there. So I ended up moving the studio out here. And I've been recording with so many people over the internet. It's a little boring being in a room alone. Right. It's a little difficult when you got to be the engineer, the everything else yourself. But I can't complain about that either. I mean, I brought a fucking U-Haul out here, like stuffed with drums and recording gear. So it's all good, man. It's all, everything's fine. Cost of living's a lot lower, and when I'm on the road, it wouldn't matter where I lived,
Yeah.
Yeah. Robbie and I were just talking about that literally right before you came on in the pre-show, as far as the pricing in LA and California and having a house and living out there. And man, I don't know how the musicians are surviving out there, to be honest with you. I mean, because if they're not touring, they ain't making no money. And
no, it's tough. And also, man, something I've always said, and this is not against people that have been there a long time, it's that, if you were fortunate enough to be doing pretty well, like in the late 80s, early 90s, and you bought a place, yeah, you could do all right. But for somebody coming in now, like I'm not coming in now, and I could never really afford to buy a house out there. But for somebody coming in now, it's like, if you're really like a musician like myself, which is like, I work for every dime. I don't have anything, and there's no money in reserve for me anywhere. I got to keep working.
Right.
It's different. It's different for the guy in the band that hasn't owned a house since 1983,
Right.
who's trying to get there. But, sometimes, that's why you got to look for situations that are really fair so you can make money and, make yourself worth it, man. But it's interesting. Now we're all like just recording from home. Look at us, dude. We could be in one room before.
Right. Exactly. Cheryl Hutchison wants to know, is there one person that you would like to jam with that you have not yet?
Yeah. Peter Gabriel.
There you go.
That would be like the dream. That would be a dream gig. So I would say, yeah, Peter Gabriel is the one that always comes to mind with that.
Wow. That's cool. I got to know about Steve Miller, brother.
Steve Miller. All right. Well, the way that happened was we just finished a Lindsey tour, and they called me up to do, that was for like an event. Again, it was a long string of rehearsals for one show. Right. And the band was this guy Federico Pole on bass, myself, Neil Haywood on guitar, and Brett Tuggle on keyboards. We were the band for Lindsey Buckingham and for Christine McVie. They wanted to get Fleetwood Mac for this event. They couldn't. So they got Mick Fleetwood to play a couple tunes, which I would switch up and play congas and stuff. Steve Miller, Christine McVie, and Billy Gibbons. And we all rehearsed like crazy. And then we went down to Mexico and did this private event where the guests didn't know we were going to perform, man. It was like, the sound check really didn't happen. And then there was a big wooden wall that rose up, and there was, us playing, Billy Gibbons starting, some ZZ Top tune or whatever. Right. And Mick played I think with the set list was like, almost 20 tunes. Mick played on 5. I played on the rest. I played congas or double drummed with Mick on his 5,
How badass is that, dude? Sitting there with Mick Fleetwood playing.
He's cool, man. He's cool. I went on a trip one time to Hawaii and went down in the lobby of the hotel and ran into him, which was like the weirdest thing. Right. And, it wasn't planned to run into him, but it turned out where we were staying was like the same hotel that Fleetwood Mac first stayed in. He was buying a weekend for some friends or some in-laws, but Mick is a great dude, man. I love him.
He lives on Maui, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was he was inviting me to his gig that time, and like I couldn't get there, but every time we'd play over in Maui with Stevie, like for a corporate event or whatever,
Right.
I had extra drums. Like I had his sizes. He liked a smaller bass drum than I use. He liked another rack tom, and a whole set of hardware stayed on the truck. So like when we'd go play these things, or I guess, they'd fly it out with my shit in Hawaii, Mick would sit in for a couple tunes. I have some funny video of me trying to reach his bass drum pedals, dude. The guy is gigantic.
Is he really?
I mean, if the riser is like, I don't know, waist high, somewhere
Right.
There's an old picture of me on the riser with my hand on like the subwoofer, and Mick is on the floor with his arm on the subwoofer, and he's still like a little taller than I am.
Holy
I'm like
crap,
5'7". I don't know. He's got to be. I don't know, man. He's just a massive dude. He's just a big dude, And
That's
he's cool
incredible.
he's cool as a motherfucker, man. He's a great guy.
That is so cool, brother. So Jennifer wants to know, how did you get together with Lady A?
Well, I'll tell you what I've done with them. Again, it was a Stevie Nicks, Lady A crossroads. And I came back from Japan, and we went in there and we rehearsed for, I don't know, a week. And then we went and did that shooting for that show. So I played, they sang with us. And then the other time I worked with them was we did a thing for BMI where they had Stevie's band as the backing band. And then that night it was like Lady A, Shakira, Sheryl Crow, the guy from Adam Levine. And there was somebody else was there too. I can't remember, but they all sang a Stevie tune at a tribute to Stevie when Stevie was in the audience. So yeah, I worked with them at that BMI thing. It's like an award show, and then another thing on that Crossroads thing. They were really cool. The girl, the singer, I can't remember her name. Sorry, but I can't remember my fucking neighbor's name if I'm in a certain headspace. But she was pregnant at the time, and she was married to the drummer, but she wasn't drinking. But that band, like, I love their spirit. They had like a tiki bar at their rehearsal so they could have a drink. And it was like all set up, it was really fun, spirited. And then when we did that Beyonce thing on the CMAs with the chicks, I remember I was walking out, and the dude from Lady A like comes up to me. He's like, "Yo, Paxson," he's like, "I'm seeing you everywhere, man. I'm seeing you everywhere." And I was like, "Where do I know you from?" Like, I couldn't remember who he was, And he's like, "We did a thing together." I go, "Oh man," we were hugging each other,
Hey, you.
It's cool. I mean, some people get to do a lot more of that stuff, like these drummers that can do award shows and like, these big productions. I've always wanted to be in that, kind of scene. And I've never gotten it. Like I was the call for that, but I have gotten on a few of those things, like with the Stevie band, which is, was always like the shit. I mean, that's Waddy Wachtel, man. I mean,
yeah, brother.
Waddy's the greatest band leader that ever lived. You know what I mean?
Absolute. All right. Don freaking Henley, dude. I mean,
well, that's again, I mean, like I did gigs with Stevie. We did the first tour we did with Stevie was Don Henley and Stevie Nicks. It was called the Two Voices Tour. So Henley and his band would go on first. Stevie would come out and sing a few songs with them. And then we'd go on, and Don Henley would sing a few tunes with us. So it was in that capacity. And again, some award shows and stuff like that. But I'll never forget, Gold Dust Woman, right?
Absolutely.
So you know how the chorus goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can you hear this?
Yep.
Yes.
So let's say this is behind the chorus, right? That's a bass drum there, right? Let's say that was the bass drum. And I just did like I just went like that, for whatever reason that one night. And Henley turns around and goes, "Woo!" and they go like, his people, like some of his crew guys were like, "Man, he never reacts like that." And I was like young and like the new guy in the band. And I remember like the earliest sound guy, like, sometimes people get on you about your sound and they're not right about what they're saying, but you kind of got to take the bullet and like, if I go and say, hey, the sound guy's full of shit, they're not going to take it from me. I mean, maybe sooner or later he'll come around or he'll get it together. But I remember the sound crew, and what's funny is all the people that came after that first wave of Stevie, like, were praising the sound. Like, oh man, your snare sounds like that's the shit, man. I love that snare sound. But the first sound guy was always like, can you get a 22 instead of that 24? And can we tune your snare up higher? So it was just so funny because like it went from that to like Henley going, how come? And his drummer's a motherfucker, and I love him, Scott. But he was like, how come? My tech was like, yeah, he was in here going like, how come our bass drum doesn't sound like Stevie's guys? Like, is ours the same size? It was like, it's all that stupid shit that happens, that splitting of hairs that you kind of got to just go like, sit back and let the chaos go on and, ride it out. But I mean, I went from like, oh, you need to tighten up your drums and, but that was funny because Henley turning around like at the sound of that bass drum. I was like, all right, that was cool.
Speaking of sound guys, the sound guy that I use for all my sound lights and backline when we do shows, Brian Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most favorite brand endorsements you've had in your career?
Well, I've endorsed a few things. I was with DW forever. I bailed that deal, not with any weirdness or anything. It's just I played them for so long that I wanted to get on to trying out some other stuff. I met these guys, a small company called C&C Drums. I still play those. I love those. I was with Peisty forever. That relationship just, I don't know, suddenly got strange. And after 19 years, again, I felt like, well, I ran into somebody from Zildjian it was like a love fest. And I felt more like, I felt like that's where I needed to be. So I jumped and went over there. I'm still with this company. Innovative Percussion makes great sticks. I buy a lot of Gretsch drums. Like, I'm still a Gretsch guy at heart. Well, the one good things about C&C is they don't take offense. Like if you play other drums, like they right. Oh man, what you got over there? That's real cool. Cool. Yeah. Earthworks, man. Great microphones. Like, I really appreciate all the support from these companies, and also their leniency when it comes to, if I'm recording and I got to use something else or, Evans Drumheads, man, I was with them forever and I loved them. And then they hired some jive ass to run the department. And he got on me for a picture that had like one of the 8 drums in the photo had a Remo head and he lost his shit on me.
Wow.
And he was going off so bad. And finally, I mean, it takes a lot for me to tell somebody to shove it up their ass, but those were the words I used.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, why don't you take them drum heads and shove them up your ass? So, I buy Remo heads these days, but I still love the Evans product and I love the rep that I had. I just don't like the guy they hired as his new boss.
Right.
I mean, I hate to be so honest about it, man, but
nah, man, that's like, what everybody wants.
You gotta feel good about what you're playing, and you gotta be treated like a human being. You gotta feel like there's some respect there, not like like you have a shelf life. Because I don't know, I'm in it for keeps, man. I'll probably be playing the day I drop dead.
Blair, are you using Earthworks mics on your kit there in the studio? Is that what you're using?
Well, I'd like to, but they're in the road cases for the chicks.
Oh, okay. So
and everything's in like deep storage. So in here, I'm using, I got like a pair of Beyer M160 overheads.
Okay.
Telefunken M82, I think it's called, in the bass drum. I got like a Coles mic out in the room, and then a bunch of Sennheiser Shores. I bought this really cheap mic that sounds really good. Recently called, what's this thing called? Aston Origin. It's actually a really unique, cool sounding mic. But the M160s from Beyer are like where it's at when you got like a ceiling that's not too high. This ceiling is in here probably like I don't know, 8 or 9 feet. And then when you drop in clouds over it, like to kill the reflection.
Yeah.
So I'll stay up at night, like until miserable hours, researching, like, and then asking around, and plus a Buyer M160s, even though this is a completely different sounding room, that's what they recorded the levee breaks on.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, but they were in a live sounding room, like far away.
Right.
I mean, dude, it's a fucking mess in here, but I mean, you can see, like, and that's set up in there, and nothing is positioned, because look, I mean, my computer stand is a conga today. But earlier I was tracking for this band in Austin named Oliver Future. And like, I use this 26, it's a CNC. I use these 13 and 16 inch.
So you got your board over there too?
Ludwig's. Yeah, I got the rack is, I don't know if you can see it from here, but
there we go.
Oh,
like
yeah.
two old Neve 1272s, 2 old Brent Averill 512s, 4 Wonder 1073s. I mean, what do they call 312s, I guess. And then it all runs into like 2 UA Apollos. And I got like pretty creative, like with the room. My buddy Kobe came in and like made all these clouds and stuff for it. And
nice, brother.
my buddy Brad from, remember that band Blind Melon? We made all those wood panels right there. We made those years ago. Yeah. Everybody's like, "Oh, your back wall looks so cool, all that old reclaimed wood," but it's actually 2 $18 pieces of panel from Home Depot. It's like a laminate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it gets messy in here. My buddy, man, there's a space player out here named Eric, and he was. I met him. He was driving like for Lyft or something, and he turned me on to the guy with the studio. This guy named Jim Moody. It's just weird, man. You go out for a drink, and you get an Uber driver who then tells you like where you should go to get a rehearsal room. And the guy who owns the complex here is like one of Joe Bonamassa's best friends. He also runs the Blues Society. So, I've been doing those gigs. But here, I'll show you something. You guys could deal with a little bit of a mess, right?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
All right, because I had to run out. I did a rehearsal with this kind of like show band today. But I'll show you. This is the... And, man, I was sweating it getting back here to get on with you guys. Because I was running late. I had to stop for gas. But, shit.
We appreciate it, brother. We appreciate it.
Oh, man, I'm having a blast. Oh, let me see if I can get this to open.
No worries.
I'm doing something wrong. Yeah, there it goes. It didn't like me having my in-ears in. All right, this is a mess in here. But this is my original room from before.
Wow.
So I was doing everything out of this room.
Right.
Man, there's a lot of old shit in here that has stories behind these things. But like, remember this band? I got this from, remember Francis X and the Bushmen from the like early 90s, late 80s?
No.
He died not too long ago. It's a drag, but we were fishing in Santa Monica, man, and like he got out of his car and like brought me this Tibetan gong on the dock and like gave it to me.
Wow.
That's badass.
I got like a bunch of snares up there, and
oh yeah,
got like some DW drums up there. I got some old Simmons pads. I've been using these things a lot too. These old like single-headed pearl drums.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cool.
The old fucking fiberglass shells. It's a mess over here, man. I mean, like, I hate to say it, but it's really a fucking mess. I got to clean up in here, but I haven't had, there's an ice storm and a snowstorm and everything else. But so that's what I do. I operate out of these 2 rooms, and
storage room there.
When the guy was moving out of this one across the hall, I just jumped on it because I thought, there's not a big demand for rehearsal rooms out here, but at the same time, if I'm in here trying to track a brushes or something, and I got a neighbor that starts playing real loud, it's better for me to spend a couple $100 and have the room. And then my buddy was like, "Man, we should just tweak that room." And I thought, yeah, let's do it. So hung a curtain, built all these sound panels, got a guy in here to paint the walls. And sooner or later, my fat ass is gonna I even got an elliptical up in here, well hidden by this curtain. But that's gonna start next week. I've been saying that for about a year.
Is that what that is? I thought that was a clothes hanger in my house.
Oh, it is. It does that well too, But that's it, man. I mean, I try to get in some time to go fishing. I like to cook a lot.
Hell yeah.
Try to keep some balance in life. But I mean, in the past year, all I've been doing is recording out of here, and I can't even keep track. There's so much shit on the hard drive. I've done a couple records, I produced a couple things. There's a guy out here named Justin Coffey, who's this dude I met through my fiance, and he's just this amazing writer and great player. And we made this 12-song record that we're getting close to finishing, and that was I haven't been called upon to do a lot of production, but I've been doing that.
Right.
And this other guy that I used to work with in a phone room in LA hit me up to produce something, so I'm in the middle of doing that too.
How cool.
It's just a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened had the world not shut down. You know what I mean? But yeah, this space here, man, is, I don't know, man. This is this used to be the side thing. You have a studio when you're not on the road. You come home and record, but now it's really the only game in town. I mean, out here, Oklahoma City is partially open, so people are out gigging, which is kind of cool. I mean, I spend the breaks outdoors, wear a mask to get in there, but hopefully all this shit will dissipate and be gone soon, man. It's been a weird year, right?
Yeah.
Kathleen Farrell says messes are interesting. Thanks for showing us your space. Very cool, and it is.
Right on. I'm actually a neat freak with this space. So, but today, I felt so bad. The snowstorm happened, and this client is waiting on his tracks, and I was I'm gonna work till the minute I have to leave, and I'm in here recording a conga tracks, a drum track, shakers, all this bells and whistles, and I just was fuck, I gotta go. So I left the whole mess, and then I got back here with I told you when I got here, my neighbor up the hall is in there. He's a really nice guy, but his guitar music he plays is and I mean it'll literally go one note for 40 minutes. So
Death March.
If I only had that other room across the hall, man, you would have heard it, because that's where I was originally going to hang out in there. But
right,
that room sounds when somebody's playing. That's the other thing. This room doesn't have any walls connected to anyone else playing. But the bathroom up front is used by some of the businesses around here. And if you solo the hallway mic, not so much now because I had asked the landlord put in a door and he did it. But before, when there was no door at the end of the hall, man, you'd hear the toilet seat going down the middle of a track, a flush, You'd hear some incredible low end, for considering it's probably coming out of such a small woofer, if you catch my drift.
Right. You know what? When I'm in the studio and I'm doing my on-air stuff, and I'll hear a telephone in the song because somebody had their ringer on, and you're reaching.
Oh yeah.
I'm like,
that's the worst.
Plus, it's in the track that's already out there.
That's more common, but the toilet being flushed, nah.
I'll hear a train, a toilet being flushed, a conversation. I mean, you never know what's going to come through that hallway, Mike. But now with the door, it's not so bad. Hey, I was going to tell you guys, I didn't have a chance to say this, but Ronnie Montrose, man, he was a special dude, and
amen.
I think about him all the time because he was tripped out because the first time he called me, he said, hey, I was looking for Jimmy. Is this Jimmy? And I go, yeah, man, this is Jimmy. He goes, well, this is Ronnie Montrose. And the first thing that came out of my mouth was, I go, holy shit, man, you played with Tony Williams. What was that like? And he goes, what'd you say? I said, you played with Tony Williams. What was that like? He goes, man, nobody brings that up. He goes, I don't know you, but I love you already. He's like, and then we had our first conversation he was like, you're the first person I've ever called to play music that didn't talk about Montrose out of the gate. And it was pretty funny because I said, well, you want to get together and play, Well, he asked me if we want to get together and play rather. And I said, yeah, man, I'd love to. I go, so what should I learn? Should I you know, and he goes, well, I want you to go out and buy this Daniel Lanois record called For the Beauty of Winona. And I go, okay, well, I'll do that. Are we going to play that music? And he goes, no, we're not. He goes, but that's what I listen to at home. And I already figure you can play. So if we can get on the same page with what we're listening to, you know, it'll better hang. And I went, all right, let's go, you know. And we used to cook and fish and hang out together. I remember one time, do you guys know Ed Roth, the keyboard player?
Yeah.
So, you know, Ed and the bass player, Charlie, they decided to fly home. And, like, you know, Ronnie and I drove all the way from Spokane to L.A. in, like, one shot. We had pot in the van. I didn't realize he was going to give me, like, an ounce when we got there. But, like, we weren't into drugs or anything like that, you know. We drank a little bit of beer and you know, smoked a little bit of weed. But we didn't do any of that on the ride. We drove 30, I don't know how long that fucking drive was. But we never ran out of stories, you know. He told me stuff, man, that was just like so incredible. Stuff about Edgar Winter, his days, you know, Van Morrison stories, man. It was just like Ronnie was this incredible friend to me, and I was really sad when he was gone. But, you know, I always say, like, we can't forget him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why the mantra was remembered, right?
Exactly.
Doing those shows is cool.
Yep.
Yeah. You know Dan McNay probably because he played with Ronnie.
That's how we met. Yep. He was playing with Ronnie. I actually love that lineup that Ronnie had. The drummer was the Mick Brown's brother, Steve.
Oh, really?
And what was the singer's name? Randy, I think.
Okay.
And because he had that band with Keith, but before Ronnie died, he had one other lineup, and it was just like grit and just like imagine you went into a bar and you heard a bar band that just fucking waxed everything. Yeah, like that's what that last band of Ronnie's was like. I was like, Ronnie, I love this band. This is a motherfucker, you know.
Right.
And then he was gone, man. You know, but what can you do? That's depression, man. You know, depression will do that.
Depression's a bitch.
Yep, but I loved him, man, and I don't think anything would have been the same without him. You know what I mean?
No, definitely not.
He was a beautiful human being.
I agree.
He influenced a lot, for sure.
What's that?
I said he influenced a lot. I mean, even if you go back to him playing with Van Morrison to, you know, obviously the first Montrose record, which most people didn't learn that whole record cover to cover, right?
Exactly, man. And he, you know, I loved playing this acoustic trio that we had for a while, and he would tell people would be yelling for all those, you know, Rock Candy and that first record and all that, but he had just acoustic guitars, and he would just be so funny on the mic, you know. He'd go, you know, he had his what she eventually became his wife, but like he had her decorate the stage like a campsite, like there was like stumps of wood and real trees and a backdrop of stars. Really? And I had this really tripped out drum set with like a original Korg wave drum and these octobans and bongos and all this shit. And I would bring like a mixer of my own with like delay and reverb, and
cool.
We'd do all this tripped out shit, and they'd be yelling for these other tunes, and he'd be like, I have an acoustic guitar. You guys think I have a 412 in my living room?
Yeah, right.
He was always about that evolving on stuff. I mean, I was even surprised when we were all like, I wonder if Jimmy does any of those stick tricks. Yeah, here, hang on. But we were always doing stuff. Who's that on the screen there? Blair
Abernathy.
Yeah, here, I'll do something. You ready? Woo! Yeah, man, I was there in the 80s, bro. I could do all that shit. I notice I do one thing with my sticks that I never see anybody else do, right? Pardon my COVID 20 pounds there. Right, but, you know, I'll be playing and the song will end, right? And we're like, the rehearsal will stop. And then all of a sudden I realize that without even looking, I'll go like that, you know? I'll just like, bang. And then both sticks will be like this. It'll end, you know? Oh. And then I'll like hit the Pro Tools off. But I do that without looking at the stick. It's a habit I've noticed lately that I think is, I don't know. It's the only thing I like about my playing, actually.
Come on now. Blair says, man, thank you.
Yeah, you got it, man. I like to pour water on the drums, too. You know, like I was doing a bar gig in LA at this place called Ponchos with. Eventually, it was with. Yeah, I was there for 11 years, man.
With who? Who were you playing with?
Jim Wheeler, Coco Powell, and this guy named Jim Garrison. And then when he split, Eric Dover.
Okay, because Dave Robbins, you know Dave Robbins, he played there.
I was like in that band for 11 years, and
wow,
I was still like the new guy. I mean, Eric was like there 2 years after, got there 2 years after I did. That band was insane, dude. It was every Friday and Saturday night. And I started, I'd get real drunk, and like I didn't need to get drunk to do this shit, but it started out that way. And like I'd pour water all over the drums, a break would have bang, Well, people got so into it that I just kept doing it. And I remember like, the day I finally went to change the heads on those drums, you couldn't, because the lugs were everything. The tension rods were rusted shut. Man.
Yeah.
But they're still in tune. I mean, it's good for just locked down. But I love that gig, man. That was like, I remember my father always telling me, like, Jim, you should always get like a really good cover gig. It'll keep you playing like a lot of different music,
Yeah.
And I was intimidated, man. For years I was afraid to go out and hang. Like, Ponchos, I heard about it. Oh, Chris Frazier's playing down there, Matt Logg's playing down there, and I was like, shit. And they're like, you should go down. They'll let you sit in. And I thought, well, what if I go sit in and it doesn't go well, and then my reputation's tarnished? Like, I've always felt that way. Like, sitting in can be a real fucking drag. So my buddy Albert Kim like called me and wanted me to play at this Irish bar, where they literally were like, oh, lads, they're moving the table for us to play with this guy Jim Garrison. And within 2 notes, I knew this guitar player was a motherfucker. And like on the break, I meet this guy Coco and this guy Jim, and they're the other guys in the Ponchos band. I had no idea I was playing with the guitar player from the Ponchos band. And they asked me, would you like to start playing with us on the weekends? And I go, yeah. They go, how come you never came in? I go, I was always too fucking scared. Like, what if I sat in with you guys and it didn't go well? Then you'd think I sucked, But it's all like, a lot of times it's like the light, like the angle people see you from, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And I knew that like they saw me with, you know what I mean? Like, it's like if you go play a gig and you don't know Jimmy Page is in the audience,
Right.
You play your ass off. If somebody said, hey man, Jimmy Page is here.
Right.
Like, I remember one time I was playing with Stevie Nicks, and like my drum tech pulls on my shirt and I go, what's up, man? And he's like, look dead center, man. 3rd row back. It's Nico McBrain, right? And I go, fuck you, man. You didn't have to tell me that. Like, I would have rather finished the show without him there. But
Right.
we actually became close, like, not close like we talk on the phone and shit. Although he did give me all his info. I don't know. I never called. But every time we've seen each other since, whether it be at another show or the fucking NAMM show or whatever, it's always like we always remember that first night in Miami,
Wow.
But usually when you know somebody's there, man, that could have a detrimental effect on your performance. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're saying that, but then you're talking about being on stage with Stevie Nicks. I mean, how much more nervous does it have to be on there with a absolute rock icon? You know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, well, I hear you, man. But Waddy, Waddy keeps that band in line. Waddy will say things like at rehearsal, like, where are you going? Don't leave me here. Like, if you rush, like, that's a Waddy line. Don't leave me here. Like,
wow.
Don't go getting ahead of me, man.
Right.
One time he told me,
Stay in the
what
box.
are you doing, man? And I remember Stevie was singing something, and I got kind of like caught up in the lyrics. I was going through a divorce and shit, and I'm playing, and I hear what she said, and I kind of like started drifting in my brain, like applying what she was saying to my life. And at the time, I didn't have like great plexiglass in front of the drums. It had like a separation in it, right?
Right.
And I see fucking with in-ears, it's hard to hear outside noise, right? Outside sound. And I see Waddy's nose sticking through it and his mouth. That's all it's coming through the glass. And I can hear him going, hey, what the fuck are you doing? Right? And after the show, he says to me, he goes, what the fuck happened back there? I go, oh man, I drifted off. He goes, you know what I call that, man? Been caught grooving. He goes, I know when I turn, because I feel a certain thing in the beat, and I turn around, and without fail, the drummer's always looking at his fucking shoes. I call that been caught grooving. And he goes, I'll never forget it, because he goes, don't groove, man. It's not your job to groove. He goes, it's your job to generate. The groove comes after what you generate. You generate the energy, and then the groove comes. It doesn't go the other way. I said, all right, man. So years later, I told him, he said, I told him that, and he goes, I said that? I go, yeah. He goes, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Waddy would say things like, I need it to sound wider, make it sound wider. And like, I just kind of knew what he meant, So maybe a snare backbeat's too like, it makes the drum sound choked. He's always there for you, man. Like, he's a reliable, his fucking sense of time, and then Lenny Castro was in the band for a long time playing percussion. And like, we became like instant family. Al Ortiz, the bass player. I mean, you got Waddy, Al knows everybody's parts. So you're not going to get away with anything there, but then the long list of keyboard players that have always been amazing. But you got Waddy Wachtel, and then you got Carlos Rios playing together. You have like this gritty fucking rock and roll pirate who's played on every melodic solo that you can memorize, And then you got Carlos Rios, who, played on that old Herb Alpert hit and all that Lionel Richie shit. And, he's like the funkiest guy ever. So you have... Stevie is smart that she puts those energies together. She gets a guy that's like Keith Richards' favorite guitar player and a guy that's like as funky as it gets and put them in one band, that like synergy.
Right. So,
but yeah, I mean, hey man, it's intimidating as hell getting on stage with Stevie. I'll never forget, like, I was really nervous at first, and we were about to go out, and one time she grabbed me from behind and she said in my ear, she goes, just remember, I picked you. And I went, all right, yeah, you did. Let's go.
I feel better now.
Yeah, but she's always been, and it's funny, like, going on to play with Lindsey Buckingham and, like, Christine. I've played with every member of Fleetwood Mac except John McVie. I've played with Christine on tour. I've done multiple gigs with, double drumming or whatever, or where Mick sat in. Or like that thing with Steve Miller, it was the both of us. It's weird, but like then you move on to play with like with Lindsey, and I really felt like I don't know, this is gonna sound weird, but like Stevie's almost like a motherly rock and roll figure, And then I had heard all this stuff about like the rock and roll dad almost of like Lindsey, like her guy, like that I didn't know. And I met him and I thought like, wow, he's actually fucking really cool. He's a very personable, cordial, intelligent, like loving guy. And then you got like Waddy, it's like Waddy. I think Waddy and Lindsey are similar in that like sense of time and their love for harmonies and shit like the Everly Brothers and, the old Bee Gees stuff and all that stuff. Like, these guys are like, the heavies, and I mean, I'm still blown away when I get calls to play with these people, because I'm going, well, fuck, man, you must be doing something right. I try to serve the song. I used to have a lot more chops. These days it's all just like trying to play strong rock with like an R&B sensibility kind of vibe.
Right.
And now you got scrutiny on the bounty. When you got your own recording studio, you can hear all your fucking flaws. I try to sometimes physically, I'll tell myself, well, that sounds a little too far behind the beat. And I'll try to force myself to rush. And I'll find that I can't make it rush, but where I think I'm rushing, it'll be like right where it needs to be sometimes, Like I was talking to that drummer, Jeremy Stacy, at one point about that, about when it's really uncomfortable. And my buddy, Mike Valerio, this great bass player, I was telling him, how come sometimes when you're so uncomfortable playing, it comes back sounding the best? And he's like, it's very common, things are too comfortable. It's going to sound, so, and I'm still playing the drums, man. I'm still fucking playing the drums. I turned 51 this year, dude. It's like, I don't even talk about my age, but like,
Yeah.
I remember when I was like the young dude in the band, and if I'm the young dude in the band now, the motherfuckers are pretty old. And they're still kicking my ass, you know? Like Edgar Winter, man. I don't get Edgar could be 100 and you could go out and have your best night and he's still gonna one up you by like 10%.
Yeah.
You know, Waddy's the same fucking deal. The guy's got more energy than anybody I know. You know what I mean?
It's incredible, brother. Incredible.
So we all have a lot of years, man. If we're blessed to get the years, you know, then we can live them. They don't have to be boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Jimmy, you have been an absolute blast, brother. And
Thanks, man. I know I talked my ass off.
You know what? No, seriously though, with all sincerity, we've been doing this for what, almost 10 months now, Robbie?
Yeah, it's coming up on a year.
Dude, this is my absolute favorite show.
Oh, really, man? Thank you.
Absolute. So
yeah,
hey, if you ever want to do it again, we can talk about meatballs and all that shit I cook or whatever.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeah,
you know, my mother is Jewish, right?
Right.
My mom's like a super Jewish woman. But I was raised Catholic because my father was Catholic, and my mom even faked becoming Catholic for a couple of years. I don't know if you could call it faked it, but you know, she is who she is. But she's like the Joan Rivers of jazz. But I have all this cooking skills from the Italian side of the family. Like I know how to make the real fucking New Jersey food.
Right.
And then I always can make a lot of great Jewish food too, man. So if I weren't playing drums, man, I definitely would open a shop and make all this food I love and do the same thing we're doing here, just bullshit with everybody, you know, just like sit around and tell true stories of life. You know what I mean?
So it's crazy that you said that because I've got 2 full-time jobs, one being obviously on the radio, and the other one is I'm the manager of a steakhouse.
Oh, no kidding.
Ready to open, and we're just now putting together our menus and our taste tests and our recipes, and so I've been in the kitchen, you know, whooping up all kinds of stuff. So we probably got a lot more in common than we think, brother.
Yeah, come on, man. Let's look it up. Yeah, I'll tell you, I don't know how many hours you are from where I'm at here.
I think we're about the same. I think we're in the same time zone, actually.
No, you mean how far away?
Oh, yeah. We're not that far away, brother. And I live on a lake with a private boat dock, so fishing.
Come on, man. That's my other thing, dude. I got I'll send you a photo that I caught a flathead out here.
Right.
In my buddy's backyard. I put my dad's old surf rod together, man, this badass old Fenwick. And like first cast, the bait flew off, right? I pulled back, put a shad on there. So literally the second cast was the first one to get in the water. And I put the rod down, man, and like, dude, 32 pounds.
No way, brother.
It was the only one all day. It was second cast, and it was like I felt like my father sent it, you know. He was a saltwater guy, but still, man, it was pretty impressive to have a fish that was, you know, I don't know how big, 4 feet long or something.
Right. So I live on a lake called Lake Nasworthy here in San Angelo. And then right down the street at our sponsor, Backbeat Music, we've got a Grammy award-winning studio where the gentleman up there obviously is willing to let anybody come in there and record and work with. So
nice.
We might have to bring you down and
thanks, man. I'll be there, man. I'm ready. Hey, man, cooking, playing music, and fishing, man. What else you need? You know what I mean?
See, what we got to do is Brian Wheat from Tesla lives about 25 minutes away from my house.
Good dudes.
He's big into fishing too, man. So
I didn't know that.
Boat and go out and do some fishing and have some fun, man.
I'm buddies with Troy, but I haven't seen him in a while.
Right?
Talking about a fucking amazing human being. I mean, Troy is one of the most like down to earth, badass player, you know, family guy, and like, you know, a businessman too, like, you know, with the smarts to like start something outside the game too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. He's living in Nashville, I think.
You know what? Actually, I did hear that. And then I know we've been speaking with Frank and to have him come on here soon. In fact, I think we have him in 2 weeks, isn't it, Robbie?
I think it's 2 weeks. Yeah.
You know, Ronnie, you know that Ronnie Montrose got them the deal, right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Ronnie paid for them to go in and record, and that was all like Ronnie's doing. Like, I love you guys. I want to bring you in the studio. I'll pay for everything. and he told us, he told them that they should cut. He goes, you should cover this song. It's from an old English band, the song called Little Susie. Yeah. Remember that was their first hit?
Sign me up. Yeah.
And it was Ronnie that brought him that. He didn't write it. Ronnie just knew of another band that did it in England and said, you guys should cover this tune. It'll put you on the map. And sure enough, man, it did.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, they're a real band, those guys. I mean, I've always felt like they were more like almost like a Black Crowes than the, they're like almost like the, I don't want to say like 80s. They're almost like the 80s. I don't know. They just have this rootsy thing to them that wasn't in. I think a lot of players. What's that?
The Blue Jeans kind of blues rockish. Yeah, I know what you're saying. They're just more.
And I feel like a lot of players from that era had that in themselves, but very few had it across the board in the band.
Right.
Yeah.
Where those guys, definitely did. Those guys like really do have that thing. It's like. That singer's a trip too, man. He can sing his ass off.
Yeah. He sings his ass off.
Yeah, I'd like to go see them. When these things open up again, I'd like to see them. I got to tell you guys, man, one thing. Earlier, you were telling me about, you were asking about, moving to LA and being in your own band. All these bands I was in that kind of, got close or whatever. I started this weird trio. I was recording with Rod Stewart, right?
Right.
And weird chain of events, like the studio thing switch. I was like all this elevator jazz, and Richard Perry asked us to come in and record. This guy JJ Blair asked us to come in and record for Richard Perry. Nick Sample set it up. Richard's trying to get the record for producer. We got to go in and work on spec. You know what spec means, right?
Yes.
Don't spec to get paid. So we went in there and we're playing these elevator jazz tunes, and no offense to Richard, man. Richard's smoking a lot of pot,
Right.
And he's not offering us anything. And he says to JJ, the engineer, punch it in right there. And JJ goes, at the modulation, and Richard goes, that's not a modulation. That's a key change, you fucking idiot. Right? Modulation, key change. Same fucking thing. So, and Richard storms out of the studio. And the talkback mic was always on in those sessions because he wanted to communicate the whole time. So if it wasn't in record, that talkback was on. So next thing you know, Chris Golden, the bass player who I had a trio with, starts going boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. He starts playing Sweet Leaf on the upright. And I start playing brushes. And I lean in the snare mic and go, JJ, are you getting this? And now he puts the button for the talk. I goes, yeah, I'm recording it right now. And 3, 4 in the morning that night, he calls me up and says, man, that Sabbath jam was the best thing we did. We need to make a whole record of it. Do you know an organ player? I don't know if you guys know, but I have this band called the Casualties of Jazz.
Yeah.
That does... mainly organ jazz versions of Black Sabbath. So this is the weird thing about making your own record, and it got this cult following, but we never gig. Matt's associate musical director on The Voice and Idol. Matt Rohde. Chris Golden's playing all this fucking bass on stuff. Our schedules don't line up, right? So 14 years later, we get this email and we think it's a joke, it's the Raconteurs. Hey, I'm the tour manager for the Raconteurs. The guys in the band love your album. We'd love you to come out and open for us, So Seriously? Right before this COVID thing hit, we went out and toured opening with the organ trio for the Raconteurs, Oh, wow. And wow. I'm so grateful that I was able to make that too. Because nobody knew the world was going to shut down after that.
Right.
And here's my only band that I ever started. We call ourselves the Casualties of Jazz, and there's a lot of a joke behind that as well. But it's a different thing for me because I'm talking between songs. Hey, how's everybody doing? It's a different animal. So now we're doing a new record. It's all Grateful Dead. With no organ and no upright bass, It's Grateful Dead done in the style of Herbie Hancock's Headhunters, with like Clav and all that, and we're calling it Dead Hunters.
Dead Hunters. So
when it's done, I'm gonna get it to you.
Yeah, please do, dude. I'll throw some airtime on it and see what happens.
Right on. I mean, the Sabbath thing was the weirdest thing because we're playing jazz, and people are showing up going like, when the record first came out, we would go out and gig around LA. People would come in and go like, man, I don't even listen to jazz, but I love this. And then we got other people going, I don't even listen to Black Sabbath, but I love this. I
can imagine War Pigs done as a bluesy organ jazz.
Well, it's on iTunes. Just look up, Casualties of Jazz, and the record is called Kind of Black. Like Kind of Blue with Miles.
Yeah.
So we were trying to think of a name for the record, and we were coming up with all kinds of things like jazz. We're going to call it Jazz for Germans, which we just thought was funny, like, y'all Black Sabbath jazz, So, but then Chris, it's the Casualties of Jazz, and the record is called Kind of Black.
So Miles Davis spinoff then.
Yeah, totally.
Nice, man.
And hey, the other irony of all that is when they called, the tour that we ended up doing with them started in Oklahoma City.
Oh, wow.
So, we didn't have the first leg they had offered us was, you can have this one, if you come to Denver and go till Austin, or you can, and then I said, well, what about the leg right after that if we start there? I mean, can you imagine my car is like a Toyota Highlander with the trailer with the three of us in there with a B3 in the back and all that other SVT. It's an upright bass through an SVT, man.
Right.
That's a heavy weight to go to Denver with.
Amen. Amen.
Luckily, it started here, bro.
There you go, brother. Jimmy, you have been kick-ass, brother. We're going to get you back on.
Man.
We're going to make the switch to Twitch. Absolutely love this night.
Cool.
I'm going to send you my number. We're going to keep in touch for sure.
Right on.
You got my number, so we'll keep in touch that way. And I'm serious, man. Let's get you down here for some fish, and maybe we can get Robbie sucked out here from the old OC. And
yeah, man. Where are you at? Where are you in Orange County?
Yeah, I'm in Orange County.
Like whereabouts out there?
Right on the North Tustin, Santa Ana border, right on the border. Yep.
There's a good club out there, man, called Mozambique.
I haven't heard.
I don't know if it's still going, but it's a great place to play because the guy owns all the gear. Like, you don't even need to bring a guitar. He's got great guitars on the wall.
Really? Where's that at? What city?
I want to say it's not Laguna, maybe, or I don't know. It's maybe not that far, but it's called Mozambique. I used to play there with Waddy and Bernard Fowler and all that whole crew. But it's great because you just show up and the guy makes this ridiculous food, and you eat so much, and then he gives you food to take home.
Huh.
And you drink. He even said he knew we were going to drink after the gig. Or I don't drink until after the gig. I can't drink. But playing with water, you don't drink before. And like, then they gave us a car, man. So dude, they picked us up and drove us all the way from LA down there.
Wow,
nice.
Which is good because you don't want to drive when you're fucking.
Get your drink on and sit back and relax.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Matt was talking to me earlier about, well, you got to get out of there. But it's like, well, we have a house that we bought, so we're like, I'm here, got the studio built in it, I know it's elsewhere, but, we're making it work. So,
well, I mean, if I owned a joint in LA, I would, I'd probably still be there. I mean, we'd have two places, but California is an amazing place, man. I mean, I get homesick all the time. And prior to this COVID thing hitting, I was there like every 5-6 weeks, man.
Right.
And now I just, what am I going to do when I go there? It's like everybody's worried. I can't really stay with friends, and there's no work going on that is going to put you up in a hotel.
Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking cost of living out there. We were just out there in June, I believe, and I just couldn't believe the cost of living differences between that and Texas. And homes out there, if you're in a $500,000 home in LA, you're shacking it, and out here,
right.
$500,000 home, you got 15 acres and a 10-bedroom, 5-bedroom or bath house. So.
Yeah, I was saying, I mean, Oklahoma City is it's really a bitchin' town, and like I remember my fiance, she great, man. She came on tour with us with like Ben. Ben is always like real open to like, you know, bring the wives, the significant others on the tour. And like we're all in France and like all over Europe together. But I brought her to LA, or she came out there. We went to brunch, and like it was $12 for a mimosa, and it was like in a little champagne glass. And she was like, "Hey, what the fuck is this?" She's like, "In Oklahoma, it's like $4, and it's a pint glass."
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a really.
I had to write those prices today.
What's that?
I just had to write those prices today.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's so many great things happening in smaller towns right now. I mean, LA is amazing, and I would love to. I'm always open to being back in LA full time, but I honestly, man, with the cost of it all, I didn't leave there because of the cost of it all, but I can't imagine going through this COVID thing having to keep up with the bills there. Because man, it is like, you know, we all got hammered, man. We all got hit real hard. It's like it's a great year for, you know, self-discovery, but at the same time, man, it's like my tax returns look like. You sure?
Yeah, exactly.
And I still owe them money, you know. So always. Yep. Well, right on, you guys. So
brother, I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys too, man. You know, I've been talking my ass off over here, and I hope that comes off all right to people.
It comes off great, dude. Everybody in the comments has absolutely loved this show tonight. They love that you were real and that you opened up and you told stories, because that's not something people do often. You know, because whatever, but we loved your honesty and you're a great talent. And I look forward to having you on our show again here when we get to Twitch.
Thank you.
You and I will be in touch for sure, my brother. So thank you.
All right, you guys stay safe.
Cool,
yeah,
man.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely, my brother. Appreciate you.
We'll catch up.
Jimmy. All right. That was Jimmy Paxson right here on the Hangout Live. What a freaking awesome show, dude.
Yeah, it was killer. It was killer.
I wasn't lying when I said it was my favorite show we've done.
It's killer.
It was killer.
I love it.
The guy's fantastic and definitely talented. Kathleen Farrell said, yep, loved it. Cool. Jimmy is a cool dude by Michael Lochner. All of them. Awesome night. Thanks. We've enjoyed it. So everybody has absolutely enjoyed this. Now, thanks for hanging with us. As you know, with all the things that have gone on in our country and things that are going on, Facebook has definitely tightened their little algorithms up and put the screws to everybody right now. And if you're not willing to throw a lot of money out, they're just not willing to push you very hard. So thanks for sticking with us. We will be moving to Twitch very soon. We'll be on both formats for a while until everybody
as the transition happens and the Rams network builds, of course, too, because they've got a lot behind it, so it'll be really cool. So
yep. And when we say Rams, so I'm going to throw this up on the screen for you for a moment.
Rock Against MS. That's with Nancy Sales.
Amen. Right there. It's right there. Rock Against MS. Obviously, they do a big deal. Most years of COVID have set them back on doing that, where a bunch of great talent comes out and plays, and all the proceeds go to Rock Against MS, fight for muscular sclerosis. So that is definitely something we support in its entirety and can't wait to make that changeover. So thank each and every one of you. Next week, we've got Tawny Katane joining us right here on the Hangout Live. That's going to be incredible, bro.
Yep.
I feel bad though, dude. I'm going to be like this. Be like, you know what I did to that video? You're posting me, man.
You're a young boy. You expect that from a young boy like you.
I was 38, but anyway.
Yeah. That's right. You're still a young boy. You're just a young boy.
Let me peek around the corner at my wife, see if she's glaring.
Yeah.
She's glaring, bro.
I can feel her behind me.
That's it. All right. We love you all, man. We can't wait to see you next week. It's the Hangout Live, and we'll see you then.